Hi everybody and welcome back to our channel. So it is just a few days now until Adam and I head out to Uganda. As many of you will know, I lived out in Uganda for very many years and I've spent over 5 years of my life there, and it had me thinking a little of all the things that I miss the most about Uganda and the things maybe I don't miss quite so much. So I thought it would be fun to do a video today on exactly that. I want to point out that I was living out in Uganda, and I do think your experience as a tourist visiting Uganda is very different to the experience of living there as a foreigner. I have also hardly seen any of Uganda. I was based in one area which was just outside of Jinja, and other than sort of going to the capital city in Kampala and the airport in Entebbe and just a couple of districts around Jinja like Mayuge and Kamuli, I also headed up north on one occasion for a friend's burial, and we went up to Kitgum. But other than that, I have really not seen much of Uganda, and I would love to one day. But yeah, this is all based on my experience living in Uganda in one area. I thought this video would be a little bit of fun and interesting for people to watch, but I really hope it's taken as just that and this doesn't insult anybody. I could make just the same video on the UK about my most favourite and least favourite things, but that wouldn't be very interesting. However, I am hoping to do that exact video with Josh one day when he eventually gets here. Anyway, let's crack on with it. I have come up with 7 things that I miss the most and 7 things that I miss the least. I've probably forgotten lots as well, but these are the ones I could come up with. Okay, so the first thing that I miss the most is probably the most easiest that I'm sure lots of people would predict, and that is the weather. I really miss the sunshine, and yeah, the weather is always, you know, quite mild in Uganda. It's never too cold, and it never gets, well, it does get hot, but it's never really past 30, so it's never like so hot that you can't get on with things. We're just finishing the winter of the UK, so definitely something I am missing is the glorious weather in Uganda. And for those of you that don't know, there are only 2 seasons in Uganda, which is wet and dry season, and you have 2 of each of these a year, but they've not really been very reliable the last few years. I feel like they've not. When I first went out to Uganda 7 or more than 7 years ago, I feel like it was like clockwork and it would exactly be raining when it was supposed to, but I feel like that doesn't happen anymore. I'm trying to think what it's going to be like now when I go out. Okay, so the first thing that I've written down that I miss the least, I have put the dust or the dirt. So this is very much because of how I feel like it affects me. I watch these Ugandan ladies walk around and they are always pristine and clean and perfect, and I don't understand how they manage it, because I walk out the door and within minutes I have, like, if it's the dry season, I have dust up to my knees, it gets stuck in my makeup, so I'm always like a different shade of orange. Oh my goodness, my hair when I wash it, and it just seems to get everywhere, you know, up in my nails. And then in rainy season, same again with the mud. I watch, you know, other people manage to navigate some mud and not get that muddy and carry on walking. I try and do the same and I completely fail, and I don't know if it's the way I walk, but I manage to splash mud all the way up the back of my legs and it always reaches my clothes, and I just find it so difficult to stay clean in Uganda. But I do think that is very much me, because it doesn't seem to happen to everybody else. Even Josh remains cleaner than I do. But yeah, I like having clean feet. Dirty feet, I wash my feet very often when I'm in Uganda, because I have to wash them like multiple times a day, as yeah, it's very dusty. Okay, so something else I really miss, which I feel like is quite different here, is people's attitude towards babies and children. So in Uganda, you walk into a restaurant or something with children or babies, they are so accommodating. You don't have people sort of like, oh, wanted a quiet meal. It just doesn't seem to be like that. Half the time, like, waitresses come over and scoop up babies, and it's the same everywhere you go. We go to the hairdressers and they're so welcoming to children. I used to take Adam to cafes and they'd always, you know, come out the back with little things to give him for free. Yeah, and I love that attitude, and it really feels like, you know, everyone pitches in when it comes to kids and helps out, and you know, strangers are always helping hold other people's babies, and that's the way I see it anyway. And you know, it takes a village and all that, and yeah, I just love that attitude towards children, really. And it's, yeah, Adam used to love going into like all the cafes because he was always, sometimes was allowed to go behind, you know, behind the counters and things. Okay, something that I do not miss at all, and I'm sure we're going to have when I head back out to Uganda for a visit, are car issues. Oh my goodness me, the car issues we got living there. From either rental cars or even cars that we purchased, the stress from cars is just insane. Cars are really expensive anyway in Uganda because they're all imported, so you get a really old car for a really high price, and it means it's an unreliable car. You know, we've just had constant issues. I mean, the first car I bought broke down, like the engine completely failed within, I don't know, a week. And then I had a big thing with the guy I got it from, and he let me replace it for another one at half cost each. And that one broke down too. And then honestly, so then we bought another car, and still that maybe lasted about a year before it completely was worthless. Then in the end we did buy a car straight out the pond, and it was doing all right. We were getting a few issues with it before Josh crashed that, but we won't get into that. But that's the other thing, is the state of roads and things, and the state of other cars. Josh has been in a couple of accidents. I honestly think it's amazing he's alive. Honestly, he's really pushing his luck. His face is full of scars from one of the accidents. You know, he's dealt with, I don't know, if you've been following us long enough, you may have listened to the story that I spoke about when he came across an accident with a dad and I think 9 children in the car or something, and how the dad was dead and Josh was trying to get the kids out, and one of the kids died. And it was just, I know car accidents happen everywhere, but my goodness, they happen so much more in Uganda. And just everything to do with cars is just so stressful. The roads are not great, so when it rains, the amount of times our car gets stuck, it's just, everything to do with the car is stressful. But yeah, so that is something I do not miss. I very much love the roads and the cars in the UK. I mean, it's a bit of an adventure going down a bumpy village road, but it's just, that's great on maybe a visit, but when it's your everyday life, it becomes quite stressful. Okay, something that I do really miss is how everyone in Uganda is one big family. So this kind of leads on from the way I said people behave around babies and children, but everyone is like one big family to one another there. I mean, everyone calls me Auntie Emily and Uncle Josh. Everyone's aunties and uncles, or brothers and sisters. Like, Josh will be like, this is my sister, she's my sister. It doesn't mean like a biological sister, it just means it's, you know, a girl that he, you know, he knows. It's all, I don't know how to even explain it, but it just feels like one big community and family, and everyone helps each other out. And in that same way, you know, grandparents raise grandchildren, and Josh took on George, Tally and James without any hesitation. You know, people help. It's all one big family. It doesn't matter who gave birth to who, it really is one big family. People help with school fees, they help with their siblings' school fees, they help with extended family members. You know, when someone's sick, they will help extended family members, uncles, and it's just, yeah, I just love the way that is. It's just not, it's not, you know, typical just mum, dad and children in a family. Family is so much more than that. Something else that I really do not miss that we had quite the experience of are all the different types of insects that you can find in Uganda. So I will go through these one by one because these were the bane of our lives. So mosquitoes, oh my goodness. Now I have never had malaria, touch wood, but I have been savaged by mosquitoes on many occasions. This photo here is after one night of being bitten by mosquitoes. Yes, I don't know how I avoided malaria. But they were just everywhere, and they just get inside the net. Like, we had good nets, and me and Josh just could not understand. We would check, and we could not understand how they would get in. And every night before bed, it was just like our little routine. We'd call it the mosquito massacre. This is coming from the vegan. But every night before bed, we'd just be up, and we'd be like clapping all the ones we can find in the net. Our net was like dotted with dead mosquitoes. We'd have to wash it all the time because they always got in. And oh my goodness, yes, they ate me alive specifically. But yeah, do not miss those at all. Do not miss the mosquitoes. We also had rather a big problem with cockroaches. Now, I mean, you can get cockroaches in any country, but it's just seems to be easier, and we never had really big ones, but just loads and loads of little ones, and they always seemed to want to live in my cooker. And I used to, again, honestly, the way I had to behave, you know, we couldn't put poison and things in the cooker because, you know, then we put our food in there. So the only way I could try and get them out, we'd put poison, you know, stuff down elsewhere, spray and powder and things. But I'd have to turn the oven on because when it got really hot, they'd be coming out. And and I'd just be there with a spatula trying to kill them. Like, honestly, it was, yeah. And I don't think everyone has a cockroach problem, but we have managed to, in all our houses, as clean as we try to be, and also in a couple of our cars as well. I just feel like once you have the problem, it's just really hard to get rid of it. And the other problem is, obviously, because we've got pets around, I have to be really and kids around, I have to be really careful with the sprays and the poisons and things, so that doesn't make it easy either. So yes, don't miss the mosquitoes, don't miss the cockroaches, and I also don't miss something called the mango worms. Now, the mango worms come from the mango fly, and oh goodness, this was so painful. So I've had 4 mango worms, and they are essentially maggots that burrow into your skin. So the mango fly obviously lives or comes from the mango tree, I'm not even sure, but basically if your clothes are left out to dry, they often go and lay their eggs in your clothes. So we iron, and we especially when we lived in our other house, we had I think 5 mango trees in our garden, and we ironed every single item of clothing to try to kill off all the eggs. But you know, if you miss even 1 millimeter and that's where they are, because you can't see them, yeah, you've got a problem. So I have had 4, just living in that one house. I had 2 in my back, 1 in my boob, and 1 in my leg. And oh my goodness, the pain. Josh managed to squeeze out, these are all on different occasions. Josh managed to squeeze out the ones in my back and my boob, but the one on my leg, oh my goodness, it got infected, and I swear it's some of the most pain I've ever been in. It was agony. I had to go to hospital, and it was so, my leg was so red and hard where it was so hot as well, where it was infected. And so when they wanted to put the local anaesthetic in, like, my skin was rock hard, so he had to get the needle and like proper with force jab it in, and oh my god, I screamed that hospital down. And he had to use a little scalpel and cut out this mango worm out my leg, and if you saw what came out of it, it was so deep, and it was just, I think I had two worms in this one little part of my leg, 2 maggots, honestly. And I've got a massive scar even now. I had a massive hole in my leg. I used to have to go back and they clean it out. Honestly, it was horrific. And even my dog's got mango worms. Honestly, do not enjoy mango worms. I have, however, managed to avoid jiggers, and I've never had jiggers, which is the larvae of a flea, and it is quite common, especially in some of the villages in Uganda, and they lay their eggs in your feet, and you get them in your feet. And I've never had a single jigger, so can say that at least. Anyway, that's enough about insects, but basically, as you can tell, I do not miss the insects in Uganda. Okay, something I do really miss is the welcoming nature of Ugandans, and yeah, just, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's, you know, people, even with little, they are very happy to invite you into their house and give you anything they do have, whether that's tea or if they've cooked something, they always offer something. You know, if it's pouring with rain and someone's got a house nearby and they see you, they invite you in, or, you know, no one is going to close their home off to you. You're welcome. I find you're welcome everywhere, really. And in that same respect, Uganda is actually one of the top countries in the world for refugees. I think it's the top in Africa and one of the top in the whole world for welcoming refugees. And again, even though, you know, as a whole, there's not that many resources and things to be shared, and, you know, the education and health is, like, it's not that great, you know, Ugandans are still happy to share it with people that, you know, haven't got somewhere safe to be. So yeah, there's a lot of refugees in Uganda. They've even, I think it can be, even back in World War II, they allowed refugees to come. They invited refugees from, I think, Poland, and I know that some Afghan refugees have gone there. So yes, and considering, you know, the way the UK reacts to refugees, and we have a lot of resources. We might be a small country, but we can definitely help. Yeah, there's a stark contrast with how Uganda welcomes refugees compared to how we do. And I think that is something we could learn from. Okay, so something else that I don't miss is, and this is not really, this comes from higher up I think really, it's the lack of waste disposal. This morning here, as every week, you know, the bin men were outside picking up the waste, and that isn't really a thing in Uganda. You can get, there are some places that do it, but I think you have to pay. Obviously that's not a top priority for people if they're struggling. But it does mean that there's litter all over the place, which really spoils the landscape. Uganda is beautiful and it's just tarnished a little bit by, you know, the litter dotted about, but it also means that a lot of rubbish is burnt, and oh my goodness, some of that rubbish, sometimes the smell of smoke that comes into your house because all these plastics and things are being burnt, and it is just such a shame. You know, really there should be a, you know, a scheme that for the whole country so this doesn't happen. So this isn't the fault of individual Ugandans really. There's no bins, there's no public litter bins everywhere. It's just not set up for that. And there are individuals, and also there are smaller schemes and things trying to do things. Even at us as a charity, we've had all the kids out litter picking multiple times. But yeah, for it to actually have a big effect, it obviously needs to come from higher up, and it's just such a shame. And yeah, it spoils your evening walk as well when you're walking around and there's litter, or when you're walking around you get a big whiff of smoke. Yeah. Hopefully that is something that can be so easily resolved one day, so hopefully one day it will be. So the next thing that I really miss are the avocados, and I cannot wait to eat avocados like every day when I get back out there. Oh my goodness, since coming back here, and you get a tiny pack of these tiny little avocados, which are usually, you know, they take ages to ripen, and when they do ripen they're actually not nice, or they're, you know, overripe. In Uganda the avocados are just amazing. They're huge and they are just delicious, and we even have an avocado tree in our garden where we managed to take them off ourselves. I honestly cannot wait to eat some avocado. Okay, something else that I don't really miss is the sort of the lack of noise control. I don't know if that's what you'd call it, but I think there are some churches that go on all night. It's sometimes incredibly noisy and keep you up. You know, sometimes people just, you know, erect tents in their compounds and have, I think, you know, for burials or introductions and all these things. I think it's normally burials that tend to go on for days on end, and the music plays 24/7 for days. We even had our neighbour do that, and I think it went on for 4 days, and it just didn't stop morning and night. And where the speakers were maybe like 5 meters from our bed, and like us, the kids, everyone didn't get any sleep for days. It was horrendous. And I know that's a problem all over the place, is yeah, the lack of like enforcement there is for noise levels and things. Yeah, that's not all the time though, that's just now and again, but it can be frustrating, especially because I need my sleep. So the next thing that I really miss are the boda bodas. So boda bodas are motorcycle taxis, and the boda boda guys are the ones that drive them, and there's little stages all over the place where they park, and if you need one you can walk up to, and that's where they hang out. I just love everything about them. I mean, I don't love how safe they are. They're probably not very safe. There's lots of accidents, so I do get quite nervous taking the kids on them, but I love using them myself. Either, you know, just to give a boda boda guy a call and be like, oh, can you go get this for me? It's just so easy. You just don't have that sort of thing here where you can just call someone and be like, oh, can you go and get me, I don't know, go and do this bit of shopping for me, or go and grab me this, or go and pick this person up, or take this from A to B. But I also just love being on the back of a boda. Don't love it down main roads. I do get very anxious with all the trucks and things, but one of my favourite things to do in Uganda is just be on the back of a boda going through the villages. I do get very, very dusty, but it seems to be where I always think of amazing ideas, and it's so peaceful. Like honestly, I think it's probably one of my favourite things to do in Uganda is just, yeah, through the villages, sitting on the back of a bike. I just absolutely love it. And we do have a few regular boda guys that we use, and I do like that because I feel like they especially know what I'm comfortable with in terms of speed and things like that. So I feel safer using the same ones all the time. But yeah, and they're just everywhere all the time, so you can be walking down the street. If you need a ride from A to B, they're there. You can just jump on, one will come past. Like, you just, yeah, I really miss having bodas around. However, I don't love bodas when I'm driving a car and they're always like weaving in and out. Then I'm not so keen on them. Okay, something else that I really don't miss at all is how often the power or the water would get cut off. Now, every time there's a storm, without fail, the power is off, and it would always be after I'd done a massive shop. You know, and I don't have a generator or any solar or anything, so it would mean all the food in the fridge would go bad. But to be honest, the power being off I could just about cope with. It was extremely frustrating, you know, having to do things by candlelight and not being able to, you know, charge things. I could just about manage, but the water being off was such a pain because, and that doesn't happen quite as often, but oh my gosh, living with all the kids when the water's off and they're going to the toilet all the time and you can't flush the toilet, and as I said, you know, Uganda's very dusty, so all the dirt that comes in, not being able to clean it, honestly, that was a problem. But that again was kind of dependent on where you live, because we've got no boreholes. So if I was in the village, and I've lived in the village when I used to volunteer, where you can collect water, it's fine because you can still flush the toilet, you can still, you know, clean and everything, you just have to fetch the water first. But where we live, there's no boreholes around, so it's really difficult to get water. So when the water's off, it's a problem. So that is something I've been really enjoying since being back in the UK, is the fact actually the power has gone off once. There's been a power cut once since I've been back, but pretty much all the time the water and the power is on and it's working perfectly. And yes, it makes for a comfortable life, that does. So my last thing that I miss the most about Uganda, I've put down here on my list, is that anything is possible. So there is always a way to do everything you want to do in Uganda. You know, it could be that I want a certain piece of furniture and a carpenter will make it happen. It could be, you know, that we want to transport something. It doesn't matter if it's a massive triple-decker bed that we want to transport on the back of a motorcycle. They'll find a way to tie it on. Anything we want to happen, everyone works together to find a way. You know, everyone's very creative. It could, like, I just say, I can't think of like solid examples, but whenever there's a problem, someone comes up with some creative way to solve it, always. I honestly think Uganda's probably a great place to run a business and things because of that, as long as you've got the money there to start it up. Yeah, just anything's possible. I think lots of Ugandans dream big. There's no limit, no limit. Like I said, bodas can carry anything. Cow on the back of the boda, it's fine, it's possible. Okay, so the last thing on my list for things I miss the least is the fact you have to pay for education and healthcare in Uganda, and it's also not really of very high quality. This is the same in lots of countries. I'm from the UK, so I'm very lucky in that healthcare and education is all completely free. I know that's not the case in many countries, but for me it meant that it was, you know, a big contrast in Uganda. You know, America, if you don't have insurance, you have to pay for it too, but to take a sick child to hospital and to have the money before they get seen, to me is just not okay. And as I mentioned earlier, when Josh was helping with that car accident, you know, and he managed to get these kids out, and it was, you know, the middle of the night and it was horrific, and there was no one around to help because no ambulance to call and things. And he managed to get them out and managed to get them to hospital, and he took them into hospital, and these people were like, well, who's paying for them? We're not looking at these kids until someone's paid for them. And that just is just shocking to me. These kids, their dad just died in front of them, and we don't know where they've come from, but some of them are dying if you don't see to them. And again, this is I don't think the fault of the individual nurses and doctors. That's the rules of the hospital, because that's the rules of the country. And I know that's the same in very many countries, but it's just something that doesn't really sit right with me. And same, obviously, if you come from a poor family that doesn't have a lot of money, then you won't get a great education. And so that's why there is always that cycle of poverty, because then you don't get a great education, so then you grow up and you can't give your kids a good one, and it's that constant cycle, which is exactly why we established our charity, to break that cycle. But yeah, it's just a shame. But I know, again, that comes from really high up. That's not the fault of the general population. That's, just the setup of the country. There is no free healthcare, there's no free education, and a lot of money really needs to be invested in both those things as well. So that's my list of things I miss most and least. However, I do have a bonus one, which is kind of an interesting one, because it is probably something that I really miss and I really don't miss all at the same time. And that is the slow pace of life in Uganda. There are so many pros to it, but there are also so many cons to it. I love that everyone has time for everybody. You're walking down the street, it doesn't matter how busy someone is, they've got time to have conversation with you. Greetings, people really take time over greetings because that's just important to them. And everyone, I think, is more chilled because there isn't that, no one's running around stressed trying to get things done. Everyone's laid back and enjoying life more. That time is not based on the minutes on the clock. But at the same time, although I love that, it's also incredibly frustrating. So trying to maybe run a charity and things taking 10 times as long as they need to, it can be very frustrating. I'm someone who really likes to achieve my to-do list for the day, and that more often than not would not happen in Uganda. Everything just takes time. We'd go to offices and be waiting all day and then not seen because it's just all gone, the queues move so slowly. So there are times when it is really, really frustrating as well, especially if you want to get things done. But like I said, it's both a pro and a con. I both love the slow, relaxed pace of life there and find it incredibly frustrating. So that's a little bonus one where it's a bit of both. But that's it, that's my list. And even though, as I said, there are quite a few things that I'm not really missing, I am missing being in Uganda so much. I of course miss all my friends, my family, all the kids so much as well. And we just can't wait to get back there in a few days. And I know that Uganda is always going to be a huge part of my life. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you found this video interesting. Please let me know if you're Ugandan or you've been to Uganda. What are the things you love the most? What are the things you maybe don't love quite so much? And yeah, I will see you again in our next video. Bye guys.
You came along, couldn't look away. Somehow you turned my life completely upside down.